Phones on Do Not Disturb. Sorry, while we connect to live stream, what's that? Thank you. Right, welcome to council members and to our presenters down here today, and to members, and Maria's up there on the Zoom to join the meeting, and to members of the public that are also viewing by Zoom. Welcome to everybody. Oh, sorry, I have not asked anybody to read that. What would you? Characters up there, the next. Okay, so kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa punamu te moana. Hei hurahau mā tātou, ai te rangi nei, araha atu, araha mai, tātou ie, tātou katoa, hui e, taike. Apologies, we have Councillor Casson is actually trying to zoom in. Is he in the Zoom? He is, cool, he's on. Francois, we're not sure. We will just have him arriving late at this stage and come back to that if the need is there. Apart from that, everybody is present and accounted for, so thank you for that. Declaration of interest, there's no changes to the interest register, but please, as always, keep that up to date as needed. Urgent items not on the agenda. We have one item, which is the Christmas lights, and the reasons were reasons for it not being on the agenda. Sorry, was that it rose out after the agenda was released. The issue arises from the elected members requesting that alternate means be sought to fund the new Christmas lights for the Hokitika Central Business District. And the reasoning why the discussion of the item cannot be delayed until a subsequent meeting is to enable the Christmas lights and the infrastructure for lights to be organised before the Christmas period. The discussion needs to happen, decisions made now. So can I have a mover and a seconder, please, so that we can resolve to have that included on the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Burden. Councillor Beard, thank you very much. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried, thank you. Minutes of meetings, the ordinary council meeting minutes from the 25th of July 2024. The resolution is, sorry, I think we've got more people arriving for your presentation. The resolution is the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on 25th July and the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 6th of August 2024 be confirmed as a true and correct record of the meeting. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Beard, thank you very much. Councillor Glett. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. And I approve that my digital signature be added to the confirmed ordinary council meeting minutes and the extraordinary council meeting minutes of the dates as indicated. Minutes to be received from the standing committees, Risk and Assurance Committee meeting minutes of 9th of May, Cycling and Walking Subcommittee meeting amended minutes of 15th of February 2024. The resolution that sits with those that the minutes of the Risk and Assurance Committee meeting held 9th of May 2024 and the minutes of the Cycling and Walking Subcommittee of 6th August 2024 be received. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please, for that? Councillor Gillette, Councillor Burden. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you, everybody. Right, moving on to the action list and acting chief executive, Scott Maxwell, please. Thank you, Scott.
Okay, first item, which is the Paki Waitara building, 41 Weld Street. There is a paper on the agenda today that feedbacks to council the geotech, reports the geotech results. There is no further report on the council HQ at the moment. We're still investigating matters. Item 2, which is the Perthtika Gorge Bridge. Councillors are aware of the presentation that was done both at last council and also at Cycling and Walking Committee. There is a paper on today's confidential agenda regarding the tender for the bridge, so matters are progressing with that. And then finally, item 3, Community Housing Trust. As I indicated at the last meeting, I did have discussions, and we are in a position now where we're waiting for somebody to come back and tell us what they want to do moving forward. Nothing further to add on that. Quite happy to take any questions.
Questions, please, Ms. Hart. The questions? Right, thank you very much. So the resolution is the updated action list from the Chief Executive be received and mover and seconder, please. Councillor Davidson, thank you very much. Councillor McLeod, thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried, thank you. Right, so we will move on to the presentations, and first off, oh, no we don't, yes we do. We're swapping, okay, we're swapping the Pounamu Pathway with the Putini Pawai Education and Research Project. So with that, we welcome Laura Neal to speak to this item. Welcome, Laura. Nice to see you.
Kia ora koutou. I'm not the only one who's going to be presenting today. There's going to be a couple of others, but I'm doing the majority of the presentation. So I'd like to introduce council members to the Putini Pawai Education and Research Project. This is an inclusive project aimed at the whole community, young, old, all abilities and all ethnicities. We are here representing many people who we have consulted with up and down the coast around Hokitika, Mawhera and Kawatiri. We're asking for council support to designate some reserve land for the Putini Pawai Education and Research Project. Our team comprises 8 current members with experience in teaching, horticulture, community garden management, native nursery management, food rescue, communications, fundraising, composting and iwi environmental management. Our current partners are the Hokitika Community Trust, which we are a subgroup of, Putini Waiora, EnviroSchools, Te Kuku Native Nursery, Te Pūtahitanga and Nelson Composting Network. Once established, we hope to widen our network to include agreements with ACC Injury Rehabilitation, Kaipoku, Department of Corrections, West Coast Education Facilities, Te Hono o Ngā Waka, plus many more. So, the reasons that we are passionate about this project. We want to increase access to fresh, locally grown kai that also reflects the cultural diversity we have in Hokitika. Create a closed-loop system that can be utilised during an emergency situation, like the AF8 scenario. And we'd like to practice seed saving to create plants that have adapted to our local climate. Community gardens offer numerous benefits for community engagement, creating opportunities for residents to connect, collaborate and contribute to their local area. Engaging the community to learn how to grow their own food and how to compost creates a more robust, resilient and connected community. Wānanga is a way of learning by sharing knowledge through discussion. All learning that we will do through the education process will be hands-on and practical to increase our community's self-sufficiency capabilities. The garden can contribute to developing and building on skills that can lead to employment pathways and entrepreneurship, and we'd like to become NZQA accredited. Active gardening and being in nature can reduce stress and improve mental well-being, contributing to a healthier and happier community. Gardens can serve as supportive environments where people find emotional and social support through interactions with fellow gardeners. Community gardens offer valuable opportunities for both people and wildlife to thrive, contributing to a healthier and more resilient community environment. Organic and biodynamic practices will be weaved with traditional Māori practices and modern science. Community members can learn about sustainable practices and develop a greater appreciation for environmental stewardship by participating in learning through gardening. Gardens promote sharing of resources, knowledge, and help to build a more collaborative and eco-conscious community. And we will be a demonstration space for sustainable practices like solar, water collection, things like that. Okay, so the project components for this are the community garden space itself, a food forest and native zone area, including native propagation, the education and training areas, a compost depot and worm farming area, a cafe that can offer fresh meals at community prices. I'm now going to hand it over to Ben, who is on via Zoom, to talk about the community composting depot.
Kia ora koutou, can you hear me okay?
Okay, thanks, Ben.
Hi, kia ora koutou. I am Ben Bushell, founder and manager of Community Compost in Nelson, also the protagonist of the film Ben and Bertha. I'm a member of Aotearoa Composters Network and continue to run Compost Club in Nelson as well. And I'm extremely excited to be part of this project and living the experience of the benefits of this kaupapa in the community. And I'm looking forward to progressing with this project. So I'm open to questions at the end. Thank you.
Next we've got Marina talking.
Kia ora koutou, ko mai Toka Ingoa. I am the project manager of Te Kuku Native Nursery, and Te Kuku is a project initiated by Rangatahi for Rangatahi, and our nursery is a space where youth can learn to nurture native plants, connect with the taiao, and give back to their communities by planting trees they've grown. To be a part of Potini Puawai project for us means we can extend what we offer to Rangatahi by having an open communal space, sharing Indigenous knowledge, practices, even delivering NCEA accredited horticultural courses. Every tree we grow supports further cultural connection, environmental learning opportunities, and supports our rangatahi to grow alongside the environment. At Te Kuku, our mission is simple: to help rangatahi find their place in the world, culturally, environmentally, and for generations.
Okay, so successful examples of this kind of thing happening around the country are the Common Unity project, which is in Lower Hutt, the Golden Bay Sustainable Living Centre in Tākaka, and the Ōtākaro Orchard in Ōtautahi, Christchurch. We see this project creating a minimum of 4 part-time jobs at the beginning, which include a project manager, garden manager, compost manager, and the community engagement manager. This number will grow as the project grows. This is a concept design that we did to try and give you an idea of how the spaces will interact together. It will be site-specific when we know which land block we will be looking at, and we think that the land that we would require would be 15,000 square metres. For council staff assistance, we've identified a number of areas, most of which are smaller and more risk averse than we would like. Our preferred area is the racecourse development, where you have already planned a recreation and reserve area. This space, which I've been in discussion with the Mayor about, is near the horses to collect manure for the gardens. It's next to Kaipuku Food Hub for food distribution, and it's on the way to the transfer station for people to drop off their food scraps for composting. The total cost of the project is just over 650,000, and funding for the project will be obtained through applications to Lottery, West Coast Community Trust, Tyndall Foundations, and others. I'm now going to hand it over to Ben and Honey Jane for questioning.
Right, thank you, Laura. Questions? Yeah. Councillor Davidson.
Is it the intention to lease the land?
We haven't really discussed that as such at this point, so.
What I just, when I went around looking at the spots with Earl, we didn't talk about money. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I asked about whether there'd be rates or anything that we'd have to pay, and he said no, so that's all the understanding I've got there. Ideally, we're asking for this land to be, free.
Thank you.
It's quite a significant program. It's quite a lot bigger than what it was when we first talked about it. Because, yes, originally we were talking about growing food and teaching people how to grow food and involving them in that. That's quite, so do you see, I mean, I've got the thing here, we're talking about the project stages, so over how many years do you see this developing?
Yeah, so we would be hoping to be all up and running by the end of year 2, probably. The first year would be around the infrastructure of digging out, backfilling what needed to be done, putting on the buildings, things like that. And in conjunction with a education project that Honey Jane is going to roll out called Mahinga Kai, the design of the gardens and things will happen through the year. So that will happen with students through that project and also with community consultation.
So you were saying there was going to be a cafe there, or that you're obviously going to be using goods from the garden to, so that's part of a building that is going to be on that site as well?
Yeah, so the cafe is the common unity project that I mentioned as an example. That's one of the ways that they generate income to help to put back into the project. It's not for profit or anything. And so we're just sort of letting you know of some ideas that we've got in terms of being able to generate our own income. Yeah. Ideally, I mean, the whole kaupapa is around community, so we're not about making money or anything like that. We want to feed the community, we want to educate the community, but we understand how exhausting it would be asking for funding every year for if we didn't generate any income whatsoever. So.
So it's great. It's great to get. But do you have the funding to begin this?
At the moment, we actually had a meeting this morning with someone from Internal Affairs, and we talked at some funding, which she thinks we will be successful with. And we've also, with our partnership with Potini Waiora, we've got a little bit of money from when they started this kind of kaupapa last year, when they came and presented. So that money is left over from when they were looking at putting in a community garden. So we have a little bit to start with, but our next step, we wanted to make sure that we potentially had some land first, so that when we're asking for money from people, we can be a bit more sure about what's happening. Yeah.
So we've got 2 requests for land for community purposes. The other being community housing, so that we get to hear back on that. On the sites identified for that. So that has to be waiting against that. The other thing is of course, only in the last week, I think, the Prime Minister has made it clear that the government is abolishing the 4 wellbeings that are in the local government legislation. So therefore, councils by the government's instruction, we get back to basics. So roads, footpaths, etc. So it doesn't exactly fit within that. Just make that observation, because it was only last week that he was quite strong on that point.
At the moment, we're just asking for land. If that helps.
Which is what we have as well, the community trust, the housing trust rather.
No, it's an admirable project, and that's the thing too, as much as you're correct in what the comments have been passed about the 4 wellbeings, this isn't involving council funding as such to impact that as well. It's actually creating quite a significant opportunity from a different angle, I guess. I mean, it still covers the 4 wellbeings, but the other side of that is it's creating a lot of resilience within the community as well. So, no, it's a great project. Councillor Clare.
Just through Commissioner, I'm quite keen on supporting it if we've got land suitable land, but my observation would be the land you're requiring is about 1.5 hectares, which would be a third of the recreational area at the racecourse. That's quite a big piece of land. So I'm just wondering if it could be scaled in different size plots or to fit what we find. It may or may not fit with what our plans for the racecourse land will be if it's such a sizable piece of chunk of land.
Yes, the area involved is significant. But that's something we can talk about. Issue.
Can I interject, please?
Sorry, is that you, Ash?
Yeah, it is. Sorry, internet connection's horrible here. Laura, I was just wondering why those 3 other sites had been ruled out. Could you just give us a little bit more context to that? Obviously, backing up on Stephen's question around the racecourse and the size of land up there.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of size, the site at Crossers Bush is only just over 1,000 square metres, so it's far too small, near busy roads. The other 2 sites, which are at the bottom of Airport Drive and Bonner Drive, the Bonner Drive one is quite steep and quite long, and again next to a road in terms of looking after tamariki and whānau, and in terms of neighbours as well. Out of those 3 options, the best of those 3 is the Airport Drive one, and yeah, again, it's not the right size, but it is next to a really busy road, and so more would have to be taken into account in terms of keeping everyone safe. For a community garden, you don't really want to have to put up fences and things like that. It doesn't feel like the right vibe, so it would change things a little bit, and there would be a lot more risks involved. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for that.
All right. Any further questions?
Oh, Ben, have you got?
Oh, sorry, Ben.
Yeah.
Hi, the big face on the screen on the behind you all. I was just wondering if you as a council have plans to compost food waste in the not too distant future, because the land that can be used for the food waste composting or a composting site in your area can also be the same site that we do this project on. I think a big part of why I've been invited to join this group is because of my expertise in space management and using a community space to meet multiple needs. So maybe none of these 4 requested sites are available, but do you have something already earmarked that you might be using for food waste composting, and could we squeeze this beautiful project on there at the same time? Thank you.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Government's specified in our new waste minimisation management plan that 2030 is the time that they're looking at food waste if it's viable, and we've only just undertaken a waste assessment, and that'll be coming up in the next council meeting. One thing we don't want to do is bulk processing of compost waste, because it does have a tendency to have smell, rodents and other issues that might end up, if it happens, transporting our compost waste to a bulk site where councils will share the processing. So at this stage, we haven't got any plans where it's going to be.
Question, has any thought been given from anyone as to who will own the on-site infrastructure? It will be on public land, obviously, but who will actually, like, say this thing starts out with the best of intentions, 4 or 5 years from now, fizzles out, and there's a bunch of stuff left there, who would be responsible for actually taking that away? Would it be a bond? Would it be a contract? Who would be liable for that?
It would have to be actually assessed and looked into at the time.
Through the chair, that wasn't discussed at the time of our drive around, we just looked at potential sites and whether we could get water there if they needed them and what structures and that type of scenario had been addressed.
So will there be like, this culminates will be a contract of sorts between, say, Hokitika Community Trust and Westwood District Council or something to that effect?
There would have to be a contract of some sort with it, yes.
I personally don't see any problem with us creating a contract for us to deliver a project like this for you. It is very much a platform that you can, as a council, deliver many of your KPIs through, and it's a wonderful bit of infrastructure for you to meet lots of needs. Primary industries, Ministry for Social Development. Yeah, I could go on for ages about it. Would love to find a way to work with you rather than just asking for a handout.
Through the chair, have any of you discussed it with the Ministry for the Environment? They're the ones that look after food processing and waste services, and they have waste levy funds, etc., that's available to support you if you need it.
Yes, they do. They have quite a large budget. It's been cut remarkably thanks to the recent government, but they do have lots of funding available for private enterprise, which can really benefit your council if we had a private enterprise delivering your composting needs. But we would need some kind of a relationship going forward, and this project is part of the beginnings of developing a relationship with you. Yeah, because it's all connected in our eyes. So yeah, it's important for us to bring all that to the table for you now.
Thank you, Ben. Any further questions for any of the team?
What are the next steps from here? Receive the report, go and discuss, or what's the...
Well, yes, we do need to receive the report, but I guess it's a matter of land and then funding applications, because you can't progress until you've got something in out there. So it's a matter of if we sort of indicate that we're interested in finding some land or making something available, it gives the banking then to go out and seek funding and start getting this established. Is everybody happy with that?
Yeah, there might be some other land elsewhere that's flat and away from the from roads that meets your requirements.
Yes, it's certainly that where it is needs to be registered or factored into it, because I mean ideally if you've got children and adults and stuff, you don't want the risk of roads and so forth too. So
yeah, I think the race course as a site is immensely problematic. I think it would have to be somewhere else.
We already have competing claims over that promised land as it is, so...
Yeah, they're talking about the piece that's not being used, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of land, we've got to just sort of find what's going to be the right piece.
Public land is when there's no one's, it's everyone's as well.
Yes.
There might be people that have other ideas for it than growing food as well.
And they've got an awful lot of land sitting dormant too. So.
I know, it does say, I'm aware of that, so, yeah, on the one hand, it seems a shame just to have land sitting there being wasted, but people also do have large gardens around here as well for growing food for themselves and for each other too, so.
Yeah, this is quite a community project though, which it takes in probably a more wider spectrum than some of these large garden. But I hear what you're saying completely. So with that, we can resolve to accept the report, receive the report, and then keep working with you regarding land and options, and also you can come back to us as you get funding available, or any updates on the project, and we'll progress this too. Happy with that? Are you good with that?
Yeah, I'll move that.
Thank you.
Alright, so can I have a mover and seconder please to resolve that we receive the report, the presentation, and we follow on those lines. Thank you, Councillor Davidson. Councillor Manera, thank you. All in favour? Right, thank you. Thanks, ladies, very much for that. Thank you, Ben, for joining us.
Thank you.
we've been kept up to speed with progress with the project. We've got a little bit of a shuffle around with the presentations. The Panamu pathway has dropped down to roughly 2 o'clock. So with that, we'll move on to staff reports. So we'll jump, Lindley. It will move down to leader of funding update from Jan, please, if you could. We're just going to have a bit of a shuffle around so everybody can just be happy to go with the flow with this. It's been appreciated. Sorry, I'm going to take my chains off the heating. Is the project? All right, so before we do progress to you, Jan, sorry if we can, Francois is an apology, so can I have somebody please move in second to resolve that that apology be received and accepted, please? Councillor Budin, Councillor Manera, thank you very much. Right, sorry, Jan. If we sit down again, sorry. Just keep on top of business as we go. Floor's yours.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Councillors. So just a feedback report on the Better Off funding projects. I've taken the report as read. I will run through one or two items. There's been some movements on some of these projects since the time of writing the report, so I'll just provide you with an update of what's happened since then. The Harry Civil Defence project is ongoing, and we're expecting that to be completed in the next month or so. The Kumara Civil Defence containers has been installed, that's been completed. We're just waiting for the final invoices to come in, then that thing will be updated. The Akira Civil Defence container was also installed last week, so that's been completed, also just waiting for the final invoices to come in. The Padarora Civil Defence infrastructure is ongoing, so that'll be completed shortly. The Lake Canary project, we made an error on the figure on the report. That has actually been completed to budget, so it's not gone over budget, but there's not $5,000 left as per the report, so apologies for that error. And then we just have the Hokitika Region Theatre. I caught up with Bruce at the Region Theatre yesterday. They are pretty far advanced with their project and still looking to be completed towards the end of September. Then we'll have that one closed off. The Hokitika Town Clock, we received the seismic reports for that. Just waiting for the final invoice from the engineer to come in. Unfortunately, it has been found to be earthquake prone, so at some time in the future we would have to discuss a strengthening project. We don't have an engineering design for that at the moment. We just know that it's earthquake prone. It's currently sitting with the building control team to have a look at the report. The Franz Joseph Community Hall, we've done the detailed seismic assessment. Again, the report's come back that the hall is below 20% NVS, so it's not great. We wanted to do an engineering design on the Franz Joseph Hall. However, the report came back saying it's not really feasible to do any form of strengthening to that hall. New portable frames will have to be installed, so it's quite a substantial project to do strengthening at that hall. Unfortunately, it is a priority building, so we get a shorter time frame to do seismic strengthening works if we were to proceed with it. But that would have to be a different conversation on the future of the Franz Joseph Community Hall. The last community hall, we're just waiting for the engineering design, which should be back next week. And the Okuru Hall as well, the engineering design should be on our table next week, then we can close that off. So yeah, Ross Hall, the asbestos containing cladding has been removed, new cladding has been installed. There's just a bit of minor touch-up we're still busy with, but that should be completed in the next week or so. So yeah, that's just an update on what we're doing. We're projecting to have all the Better Off funded projects completed by the end of September and have a final report come back to council on that.
Thank you, Jan. It's a massive amount of work that's been undertaken, but the amount of coverage throughout Westland is just absolutely exceptional. The gains throughout all the communities, it's absolutely brilliant. And again, more oversight and management of these is ensuring everything's completed to time and budget. So thank you very much for that. Great report. Any questions for Jan?
Yeah, one from me, Helen.
All right, Councillor Casson.
Jan, awesome work for you and the rest of the team on these projects. I just note 3 have gone over budget.
Yes, so there's 1 or 2 projects that's gone slightly over budget. However, the overall budget for the project as a whole has not gone over budget. So we've ensured that we do have a couple of other projects that's gone under budget. When this project started, and it was before my time, but there was very little time to scope up these projects, and some of the works, when work started on site, we found it was a couple of issues that had to be resolved. But again, the overarching total budget for the different portfolios is still in line.
So that deficit is covered by the other parts of funding where we've had savings on other projects. Is that correct?
Yes, and we didn't get that, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. It's very very poor internet and very poor sound quality. Sorry, but yes, thanks, Jan.
Paul.
The town clock, EEC, 0 to 20% NBS, what does that actually mean? And given the fact that it's so middle of the street and people dancing over it all the time, taking photos and themselves, and
so when the seismic assessment gets done, that gets sent to our building team internally. They review the report, and then they come back with the earthquake-prone notice that needs to go on the building. That also gives us a time frame of when a strengthening needs to be done. But what I would, we need to get feedback from the building team, but what I would think is that we definitely need to start planning a strengthening project, because if we do not do strengthening by the time of the deadline, we'll have to either take it down or build a barrier around it, and it's right in the middle of the street crossing. So some work will have to be done on that in the future. We haven't got an engineering design, so I have no idea what that work would entail. Obviously, that was not part of this budget. We just had enough to do the seismic report. We now know it's earthquake-prone, so I would definitely, as part of the LTP, put forward a budget to get an engineering design so that we can cost that up, see what that cost comes down to, and see that we can plan that out in whatever time frame we are allocated with.
Sounds very interesting.
Yeah, let's hope it's not. Yeah.
It's not an occupied building, so nobody goes into the building, but yes, in a major seismic event, there is the chance that it could fall out.
There's always a chance of that.
Yeah.
But we're not going to see some ugly fencing erected around it.
Not at this stage, no. Unless we get to the date where seismic strengthening needs to be done, and like I said, we still need feedback from the building team who's busy reviewing it. I suspect we could have it by next week. So I'm happy to give further feedback on that when we get to that point.
So the prospect of rebuilding or dismantling and reassembling it frightens me. With the experience of Cenotaph, on and on and on, and how much does that cost?
Like I said, we don't have an engineering design. We know it's earthquake prone. I don't know what needs to be done to strengthen it.
But can I ask how much that cost for the Cenotaph?
I wasn't involved in that.
We'd probably have to get that information, being that we've got sort of a new team here as well. But yes, we understand your concerns, and it's something that's...
Yeah. The Cenotaph was reporting at the time, so we do have the figure. Yes. We just don't have it with us today. So we can cover that.
So this is raising the flag for us to be aware of, and of course, as we progress, we'll have that information come back, and then we'll know what, where we're sitting as far as what's got to be done. But yes, we certainly hear your concerns there, Paul.
Unfortunately, the other seismic assessments that we've done also classify some other community halls as earthquake prone as well. So as with the town clock, there'd be some other work required. Past Akuru, Cockatile, and Franz Joseph Hall is all earthquake prone. Yeah. So they will all require strengthening at some point.
That's based with that whole earthquake prone and earthquake susceptibility aspect, isn't it? That every community, every town, every city's plagued with.
Yes, but they're not all sitting in the middle of the busy street.
No, No, so we'll wait for that report to come back and see where we go with this, but it is a concern, and I know we're heading with that for years.
All I was going to say is we are aware that it is an iconic structure in the middle of town, and that we will bring something back to council to make a proposal on how we deal with it moving forward.
Through your worship, I'm sure we will try, but can we have some flexibility in that? I would hate to see it caught up in this, get on this horrible treadmill of endless reports and only one outcome, which is to pull it down and reassemble it at an enormous cost. There must be sensible ways around it, but I know that's the way down the track, but.
Yes. No, I think we're all in agreement there as far as past practices versus now. So, and yeah, it's quite favourable to working out where we see the direction. So, which is excellent. We're very grateful for that. Yeah. So, is everybody happy with that? Any further questions for Jan?
I guess it's lucky we've got a replica down at the playground, isn't it? They'll have to come down.
Thanks, James. Right, so can I have somebody move and second, please resolve that the report be received from Jan? Thank you, Councillor Beard, Councillor Verdon, thank you, all in favour?
Yep.
Carried. Thank you, thanks Jan, very much for that. So
In
we
case
will...
anyone's never read the plaque, it was a monument to the coronation of King Edward III and to the Principal War as well.
So we will step back, and Liz here now, we'll go back to the projects and carry forwards for 2024-25. Welcome Lindsay to the meeting. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and councillors. My apologies for being late. Through Your Worship, I present the projects and carry forwards reports for 2024. I would also like to mention that there are two urgent projects which commenced in the last financial year, which are not listed on the schedule, simply because they weren't part of our annual plan process, and didn't technically have carried forwards. They are the Franz Joseph Wastewater Protection Wall and the Hokitika Gorge Swing Bridge. Through Your Worship, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Lindley, and you weren't late, we've shuffled the agenda around, so. So, yeah, okay, any questions for Lindley, please? Councillor Gleed.
Your Worship, can you just explain the racecourse cost there, the 1.5 million? Is that actual or anticipated?
At this point, I believe it is anticipated.
Right. Through the chair, we have to, it's money we claim back.
Yes.
So we have to put provision in and then we claim it back, and there's a time differential between spending the money and claiming it back, but by the time we finished it all understand prices now.
Because I got a feeling it's going to be less than 1.5 that we claim.
It's to do, I think it's from memory, it's to do with the timing of the road infrastructure and the way that that's going to work. But the net effect is at the end of it, it's a zero balance.
Yes.
Joe, we have to show an expense, we have to show a revenue, but we can't just net it off.
Thank you. Any further questions, please? Councillor Byrne.
Through Your Worship, the Ross Community Pole Shed and Land, is it time for an update on that of the community? That's been going on for years, and my understanding is it hasn't progressed.
Through the chair, I can answer that. Yes, I've had meetings down there with the community, particularly Beth. There's been a dispute going on over the piece of land or cost thereof. With the landowners, we have identified another area that we can do it, and that'll be moving forward.
Right, thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Any further questions? I can't see Ashby's got a hand up, but what shows? No, okay. No further questions? Okay, so can I have somebody move and second to resolve that the report be received, the council approve the carry forwards of funds for the projects itemised in Appendix 1 and operational costs, or the 104,000 for audit fees for the deferred long-term plan for the financial year 2024-2025. And 3, the council approves the future allocation of funds for specific purposes, please. I've moved and seconded. Councillor Baird, thank you. Councillor Monero, all in favour? Yes. Sorry? Ash, was that a comment? Aye.
No, that was just aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary. Thank you. Thanks, Lindsay, very much for that.
Thank you.
Right, moving on, we have, we'll go to the quarterly report from Acting Chief Executive, please. Thanks, Scott.
Your Worship, councillors. I'm going to take the report as read. There's a couple of points I would just like to make with this. We've tried to shift the balance of the report to reflect the totality of what's happening in the council. I think historically there was very much a district assets focus to this, and what we wanted to do was to give a broader outline of what's going on. So that's sort of the general. We've changed the structure of the report, we've changed the order of the report. The other aspect I just want to touch on briefly is there's an item here that talks about Custom House. There's a couple of things that we need to talk with colleagues in Heritage Equity about, and I've agreed that we'll put a meeting together just to bottom that out. And that's a conversation that I've had with council about apart from that, I'm quite happy to take questions if anybody's got anything they wish to raise.
And like I said to Scott earlier, it's a great report. We haven't had information like that for some time. It gives us a really good perspective across the whole reach of councils to what's happening, what's being done. Yeah, it's very, very pleasing to see the content, although a very long report takes quite some time. I appreciate that, so thank you very much for that, Scott. Questions, please. Yes, ma'am.
One was the welcoming communities coordinators has resigned.
Yep.
And the notion here that the community services manager has been accessing ways to ensure there was no loss of service across community development and funding. And just wanted to reiterate on this one, when the council accepted this funding position under the previous CEO, on a very clear understanding it wasn't going to be any impediment or cost on the council, or the expectation that the funding would continue into the future if that funding stopped. And that was a very, very clear message. And I've just seen here we're looking at accessing funding to continue.
I mean, if I can introduce Marcus to councillor who's not already met him. Marcus Waters is our new community services manager. I don't know whether you want to.
Yeah, so we've received. So we've received 2 tranches of funding through the MV Welcoming Communities program, and there's one more to go early next year, January next year, subject to meeting certain criteria. So the comment in there was just ensuring that we can continue meeting those criteria and actually not miss out on that funding. Essentially, that work is going to be distributed. I'll be doing some of it, and then there's a couple of other roles that we can look at making sure that funding that work continues.
Okay, thanks, Marcus. So just to be clear, we're only talking about the funding to the end of the 3-year project.
Yes, yeah, there is no funding beyond that.
There isn't that correct? And as I said before, when it was accepted into the council, it was on the expectation that once it expires, it's
yeah. always seed funding to try and get some initiatives going in the community.
Okay. Also, on 7.1, the transportation update is rather frightening. There now that the dust has started to settle, so to speak, and the budget constraints from that mean there's a 64% reduction on what was requested for footpaths, 41% reduction on what was requested for road safety. And so this means that council will effectively only be able to maintain footpaths and not carry out any resurfacing renewals. This is, worse than we had anticipated.
I don't know whether Earl wants to come in on this at all.
Yes, it is less than what we anticipated, unfortunately. It's just the funding support that we can get.
So how do you intend to recast that as to who's on priorities and who unfortunately lives out?
We're in that process now, so that can be looked at.
But it's something we will share with council. What I can say out of this is there's clearly a lot less money moving around, and there's also a different priority set that are coming out of government in relation to transportation. There's still elements of the unknowns, but if you take this as a signpost of what potentially is coming down the track, then there's going to be less money to play.
So does it become a matter of the squeaky wheel, or a matter of what's been long-term priorities for the roads? For the potholes, for instance.
So the issue is we will have to have a measured programme that is acceptable. We can't just jump around and respond to whoever raises the most noise, because that's not the way that we would need to deliver it. But there's going to have to be a lot more work done in-house once we get more detail through the rest of the programme.
Because we had, there were two areas in particular over the last 3 years that have keep coming back to the council. Would have been under this, they're just not going to, those areas wouldn't cut mustard. Okay, so it'll be interesting to see then. So will that be next month that we'll come back with a reprioritised?
Through the chair, probably take a little bit longer. I'd estimate it by the month, they probably might not make the meeting.
Also, the reductions in funding for road safety. Who then decides on the priorities for road safety going forward on the local level?
That's done through the transportation manager.
Do they work together with the other councils on that? Right. So the funding, as I understand it, there's still funding for some programs, still continuing, including private driving, instructing.
Yes, there is some projects specifics I have to get back to you with about what has actually been cut.
And so they come back to us as well, yes, from the transportation manager.
Yes.
A question regarding the Tonkin and Taylor, regarding the Tonkin and Taylor report regarding the waters.
Yes. I had a preliminary meeting with them on Monday this week, and there's the issue about affordable water is it's still up in the air. And the reason I'm saying that is that there is no more money on the table. What appears to be on offer is an ability to borrow more money and potentially to borrow it at slightly cheaper rates. The challenge that you've got, particularly on the West Coast, is it's not whether you can borrow the money that's the problem, it's whether you can afford to pay it back and what the impact on rate payments is. So the piece of work that we've done with in its initial stages was, what are the economic benefits across all councils of putting together some kind of And the very preliminary responses that I've seen are the only benefit you get is the potential loan funding aspect of it, which is guaranteed at the moment, but you can't say what will happen in 2 or 3 years' time. So there's going to be a meeting with mayors from across the 3 districts over the next couple of weeks to actually sit down and go through line by line what the key issues are that are coming out of the local water done well, and what benefit, if any, exists in doing some close working.
So are we no longer looking at a larger group of councils?
Well, that's what Tonkin and Taylor were tasked doing. So Tonkin and Taylor were tasked with going, is there any benefit at all at Grey or putting together some kind of a group, whether it's a CCO or a CTO?
But we're not looking at wider than that.
Not at the moment. What we're finding in Canterbury, there's a number of councils in Canterbury that are starting to coalesce together. But again, when you start to ask detailed questions around, so how do the economics of that work for you then, the response comes back very muted. So the overall challenge that we've got with local water done well is there's no more money on the table, and that is the key driver for a number of the issues. So you can get together with different councils unless there are some fundamental savings that you can generate, either in terms of economies of scale, procurement, or whatever. It doesn't necessarily mean that's the answer. I mean, earlier you were on the same meeting.
Yes, the thing you have to, I'm sure you understand, we are the poor cousin on the block of West Coast. Places like Selwyn and Canterbury, they have got fast growth rates, so their rates of intake is predicted to exceed loan repayments in the future, 30+ years, where ours not going to. So we have to source some other term of funding.
Stephen was first.
Okay, Stephen.
Through the chair. So how seriously are we considering the proposal to put our water assets into a CCO?
That's the purpose of this. So that's the piece of work we're doing with the 3 councils, which is there an economic advantage to us doing that? And so far, other than the way that the borrowing works, we're not seeing anything clear coming out of that. And conversations I've had with Leslie is that some of these ideas about how much money you can actually borrow, we can't afford to pay back. And if you stretch the borrowing period, which is another one of the options they're looking at, basically you hit a tipping point where you're spending so much on interest and so paying off so little on capital at the moment.
Yeah. The length of the loan is irrelevant, really. You've still got to service the interest there.
Plus to respond on the CCO scenario, they have to have an independent board, they have to have an independent management structure. You're looking at $500,000 at least.
Well, we've already gone down this path of our current CCOs. We're too small to have CCOs.
So one of the reasons for doing
I don't want to entertain that idea.
No, one of the reasons for doing this piece of work is the government pushing councils to look at it. If we just go, now it doesn't work for us, we'll go show us your evidence. So this piece of work is about drilling into, does this make economic sense or not? And like I said, it was literally just this last Monday that we met. I'm going to meet with some colleagues on Monday. There's a ministerial visit. Some of us are going to get together just to talk about how we think it's going to work for the councils. Because the challenge, when you've got, sometimes you want to have conversations when the consultants are not in the room, which is effectively what we're going to do on Monday. And then we're going to go back to Tonkin and Taylor to arrange a meeting with the mayors and chief executives to just bottom out what this really means, with a view to then bringing back a report that says this either works or it doesn't work.
Yeah, I'd favour strong pushback on this whole CCO concept. I think the government's obviously urging councils to sign up quickly before they think about what the implications are. And I think Bill's correct that the model suits larger growth councils, but it's not fit for us, and it doesn't provide any solution whatsoever. And a CCO model would actually increase our water costs
It is, and my experience of these kind of scenarios before are you agree to something and then 2 years later the rules change and suddenly you've got something that you wouldn't have signed up to and you then can't get out of. So
there's a lot of work to be done before we get this progressed to any stage close of something that could be appealing going forward. It's up top of something now. You two toss a coin.
I think, through the chair, the only benefit you'd really get from scale would be as if that made certain things cheaper, like borrowing or certain plants and stuff, right? But we're so geographically dispersed anyway. It's not like you're going to have one centralised processing plant for everywhere between Hurst and Karamea, right? So there's limitations to how much consolidation you could.
You might get some activity savings from having one CCO covering the whole of the 3 areas, but it's still
potentially. You create a layer of bureaucracy that then costs money as well, right?
Exactly.
So there is that. And I mean, I don't think this is ultimately going to, but the people are the ones paying for it one way or another, whether they pay it through rates or taxes. And insofar as the government makes capital available, it's just taking money out of the market that we're going to have to go and borrow a higher rate from the banks anyway. So I don't think any of us are actually going to end up much better off. But yeah, I mean, also the consideration, I guess, in terms of doing anything with the other two districts, if you are the poorer of three cousins going into a joint venture, you probably stand to gain. If you're the least badly off out of the three, you are quite possibly subsidising your neighbours. Now, I don't know where we fit in that situation, but someone is lifting a boat and someone is sinking a boat, I would assume, unless we are all going in as equals. So
yes,
it's part of the problem we face is a lot of them don't want to be carrying neighbours.
Yeah. Now, I don't know whether we're the blessing or the burden or not, but anyhow, someone,
Okay, Paul.
So on that note, spare a thought for our Buller cousins, because they're in a far more desperate situation. At the moment, their neighbours don't want to know them. However, so the government, under this better water's better done, whatever it's called now, the ability to borrow and retaining the assets in council ownership are the keys to that, of course. But if you wind back the clock to before Three Waters became a thing politically, which was only from the last government that made it a thing, until then we were bouncing along okay. Is it that much changed?
In terms of where we sit, so we put a lot of investment into above ground freshwater investment. So we've got some really good freshwater treatment plants. The areas that present more of a challenge are what's in the ground. So we've got an ageing piping infrastructure, and the elephant in the room is the wastewater treatment plant, which is plants. Yes, that's the big tickets for us.
But they were still there before.
Yeah, and they would have presented financial challenges at some stage, all before the three years.
And the disintegrating pipes in the ground.
Yes.
They're all still there.
Yeah, nothing has changed in terms of that. I mean, Councillor Phelps is exactly right in what he said, which is when you get together with other organisations, there's always a lot of horse trading about who's bringing what to the table, where's the money getting spent, who's the priorities, and also bearing in mind that there is only a fixed amount of companies out there that can actually do this work at any point in time, so you end up fighting over who's building what and when. I'm of the view, personally, subject to the Tonkin and Taylor report coming out, I'm with Councillor Gillette. I can't see the benefit of doing this CCO setup. Yeah. But you do have to do that piece of work to prove one way or the other whether it's got the legs or not.
And it's based on the working model, which works reasonably in Auckland. The ratepayers and the people getting water and that do pay. I mean, it just, the cost of everything doesn't go away. It just gets funneled down another.
As opposed to the Three Waters proposal that we were faced previously up until last October, which was where the council's lost ownership of all of those assets. And we're being forced into relationships that we didn't want to enter into, and that was all based on that Scottish model. So, you know, there are...
Yeah, so my take on it, if I'm being really blunt, is the basis on which the Three Waters model work is that you had a rich friend that you could take that money from. That's how it would work. You would get into bed with somebody who got a better balance sheet than you had.
Yeah, the people with the better balance sheets didn't want to get into bed with their poorer partners. But I mean, all of this is just a result of the fact that we're a country with increasingly dubious first world status that's got first world expectations for our infrastructure that we possibly can't afford as well. So,
through the chair, we have done a lot of work on infrastructure investment and investigation in the last 3 years, so we have got quite a good program of infrastructure that we need to work on, usual piping type things. We've got some more camera and special work to undertake. We'll be rolling that out. It doesn't have to be cheaper, it just gives us like identifies how much we actually need.
Councillor Neal.
How much is the Tonkin and Taylor report costing?
Across all three councils, I've got a figure in my head, but I'm finding it wrong. It's not more than that. I will come back.
what's it costing us?
That's what he's just trying to
Yeah, I'm just trying to work out that I'll give you the right number. I think it's no more than 20 grand for us. But can I put a helpful one and go with that? Because I need to just go back.
A small number with 4 zeros though, probably.
Growth industry.
Councillor Verdon.
7.1 transportation, just around the road safety and the road safety coordinator that we now don't have. Find it interesting that the council's looking into doing some young learner driver training, reaching into that space when we already have a number of providers. I'd say the market was flooded with Taipatini, the Salvation Army, West Red, all taking on that work. Why would the councils now want to go in to do something that everyone else is already doing? So I'm just a bit worried about that. And with the road safety coordinator going, has the committee been disbanded, the road safety coordinating committee? Does that no longer exist, or?
I don't know the answer to that. So that is a report back for next time.
Thanks.
And just reflecting on your statements about other people doing road safety, there are other providers out there for points of doing.
Absolutely. And I'd rather the council focus on, elderly drivers and people on motorcycles and things like that, rather than the learner drivers that are getting all this attention. And that's what the road safety coordinating role was doing, I understood. So.
Well, it's something we can have brought back to us next month, have a bit of definition on this, I think. Yeah. Because it's also, as Elle said before, it's actually decided between the three councils as far as what's going to be done. So it could have been weighted somewhere along that line. But we'll have that come back to us for next month.
Just in terms of answering your question, one of my colleagues is watching online and just said it's $60,000 across all three councils.
There we go. 60,000 all up, 20k each. Okay, thank you. Right, so we've got another presenter waiting online to present to us. So does anybody have anything further for Scott regarding the report? One comment I will make, actually, before I ask for a mover and seconder, is the eyesight. Great to see that information, because again, it's something we haven't had before. It's great to see that the work Lucretia's doing is so focused on getting a scale of how well that's working and what's happening in there. So our thanks to her for that, because it's quite insightful to see a lot of information on here that we have not been privy to for some time. So thank you everybody that's been involved with all those components. So the resolution is the quarterly report from the Acting Chief Executive dated 29th of August 2024 be received. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Phelps, Councillor Monera, all in favour? Aye. Carried. Thank you very much. Thanks, Scott, very much for that. And Elle, for your time in there. Now, next we have Tuku. Are you still there somewhere? Oh, yeah, there he is. Tuku, come here. Talk to us about the Panamu Pathway. Welcome, Tuku. Oh, there. No, I can't see you. Welcome. Here we go. Welcome to the table. And we will pass the floor over to you to bring us up to speed with the Whanganui pathway.
Sure. Kia ora everyone, kia ora Mayor, kia ora councillors, kia ora Paul. I can't see, it looks like Francois is not there.
No, he's not.
That's good, always have to acknowledge those. They're there. Kia ora everyone. I think the best way is I'll see if I can share. I've got a couple of slides and make it rather quick and then just have a sort of Q&A if that's okay. So I'll see if this works. I'll just see if I can share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Kia ora everyone. So Pounamu Pathway, I may not be familiar to all of you. My name's Toko Kapia. I'm the CEO of Pounamu Pathway, working alongside Francois and Paul and others. And we are here to give you an update today. I'll just quickly go through. So most of you are familiar that we opened up a Mawhirapa in Greymouth late last year. Here's a couple of nice visuals. What's really nice, the one at the bottom there, bottom right, is Matariki Day when we opened up free of charge to the community. Got a really good uptake of people coming through, even during the rain. And I think actually, Paul, that's your photo you sent me. So it's lovely. We can talk about that if anyone wants any comments on that. And then in February of this year, we opened in collaboration with Coaltown Museum of Kawatere. And that's a sort of a nice fusion of the existing museum, adding in some new material and a new take on the existing material and adding new information. And just to note that up there, it's also an eyesight. The next point, which is relevant for you guys, first thing I think we need to point out is that we have had a pivot and we have decided to change our location from the Haas Visitor Centre to the Franz Josef building where the Franz Josef Glacial Guide business operates out of. And I think the dock office is there as well. It's owned by Ngāi Tahu Tourism. Long story short, when we were going through the process with the visitor centre at dock, it became clear that it was getting harder and harder with the configuration of the building up there, as well as some of the assets, that it was easier for us to work alongside Franz Josef building and get closer with the Ngāi Tahu tourism businesses operating there. So we are working through a process now of basically the visuals on the left and up top are just what we would have going to have at Haast, very similar to what we've created in a bit of mixture of Mawhirapa and Museum of Kawatere. Just a heads up that we've just, in another session with Weta Workshop, just making some small tweaks to content, all subject to people like Paul and our cultural committee and then the board. We are quite confident that we can start doing physical structural work in the next month or so, aiming for an early, if at the latest push, sometime mid 2025. So that's what we're doing there, and just simply a creative impression, concept only at Hukatika World Street on the existing site of Ngāi Tahu Pounamu, a two-storey building that will house the Hukatika Pounamu Pathway site. The creative has been complete. We are now just getting ready for the demolition in the building and then obviously the all the inside exhibition area. One other thing I really need to point out is that the biggest thing we've noticed from an operational perspective is that we couldn't get a lot of the trade partners, the big tour buses, etc., on board. They wanted to wait until we were up and running. So for the last 4 months, I've been really busy, spending a lot of time in Christchurch and Auckland, trying to get a lot of these sorts of companies on board. What we've been relying on is basically our relationship with Transalpine and just tourists coming into Grey and Westport. So what's interesting is all of the hard work we've been doing here. We went to Trends. I'm going to Auckland next month for another mini Trends type event, and then again in November. Once we sign up a lot of these big players, they will all be set up for our Franz and Hukatika sites. So quite exciting. Basically signing up 1 or 2 every week. So that's really useful for us. And I think a lot of you know that it's sort of a slow process here. A lot of them have the itineraries locked in until the next season. So we've signed up a lot of these. They're giving me a whole lot of bookings for basically 2025, 2026. So it's sort of just hanging in there until then. And that's me. Kia ora, everyone. Quick update. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Toku. Thank you very much for that. It's great to see or have an update on what's happening and where. Questions for Toku, please?
Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Abson.
Just to get some clarity on that Haas to Franz Joseph. So what you're sort of saying is that the original site was going to be at Haas. Now that's going to be moved to Franz Joseph. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was there much conflict down there with the Haas people at all on that one?
Not too much, and to be fair, we've only told a number of people. So basically, you guys are the first that we've formally told. So the board know and shareholders. So what we're going to do is almost probably have to go down there in the next 2 or 3 weeks and talk to people. I'm obviously been talking to Doc, so they're aware of the change.
Okay. Thank you for that. And just a quick one. That first image of the two-story proposal in Hokitika, is that going to be like one floor and then another floor on top? Is that correct?
I think my understanding is, and by the way, still just in design, but I think it is a two-story building. That's the plan so far. We're only at concept at the moment.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Kia ora.
Paul.
Just a comment too, and to me to Tupper, because he has been behind the scenes, has been shoring up these big tourist operators, the big fellas that will be coming through Marwhera Park, and so you'll notice an immense change is resulting in. So we'll see the fruits of that coming from the coming season onwards. And also the move from Haas to Waio Friends is a really smart move, and we're excited about it. It's to be fair, Friends should have been here in the first place on the Whanau pathway, but it was the Haas was a assistance from the officials at the time. And so it's a bit of a shame for Haas, but they still got the visitor centre. But it was really difficult for us to try and fit within that. The configuration was really, really tricky. And so there was that, and plus there was the whole dock infrastructure within that. It was just became too difficult to work around. Anyway, Haas is Friends is our building, and we built with a bit of like and can really make it fit the purpose for us. And it's right in front of these hot pools, which are closed at the moment, but there's work in the background. So yeah, whether the hot pools reopen is something we can't discuss at the moment. So there are models that are being looked at. But the move to Friends though is just super exciting, and it will be such a compliment to the rest of the pathway. So.
Well, thank you, Paul, for that. Very much so, and for Friends, it's another dimension for them as well. And they've been so supportive of the tourism industry and the business. With you already being in Friends, Joseph, with that building, it's quite a splendid area of Friends on its own. Look, that's fantastic, and the concept for here is exciting too. Yeah, and that's, I mean, I must admit, I have seen that concept picture before, but that's all I've seen. So, yeah, you're keeping us baited here, Toku, and it's actually really hard because it's quite exciting.
Yeah, and I
back again and updating us with anything because we are excited about what's coming, and very supportive
Sure.
of it. Yeah, it is, it's great.
That's fine. Happy to do another one in 2 or 3 months, just another 10, 15 minutes and give you more visuals and more updates. Happy to do that.
Yep, no, when you've got them, we'd be more than welcome to have you come and join us and update us with those things. It's brilliant, really good, really exciting.
Kia ora.
Any further questions for Tuku?
More just a comment from me, Helen, if I can. It's awesome to see Te Ao Marama being used again. That glacier-based building's been vacant or largely since COVID, so great to see that being utilised. And as Paul said, was always a stop.
Great
to see that base.
Thank you.
Sorry, Tuku, Ash is on the other side of the planet and reception is not that wonderful where he is. So you're a wee bit broken there, Ash, but that's all good. He still got the gist of what you were saying. Can I have somebody please move and second and resolve that the presentation from Tuku from Pounamu Pathway be accepted? Thank you, Councillor Davidson, Councillor Burden, thank you very much. All in favour? Thank you very much, Tuku. We're greatly appreciative. Nice to see you again on the screen.
Great. See you all. Ka kite.
Thank you. Right, so next we have the Geotech summary report on the Piki Waitara building. Jan is tucked away in the corner there. Hey?
I'm excited to Pounamu Pathway into the depths of Piki Waitara.
Need light and shade for it.
It's all yours, Jan. Just ignore that comment. He's not comparing you to the Pounamu Pathway.
Yeah, I'll take the report as read. Obviously, we were requested to provide the geotech report. That's been completed now. I did put a little summary in stating liquefaction, as with this building, is not as big as a concern. Expected 50 to 100 mil occurring between the western and eastern end of the building in an extreme event. So yeah, I'll take the report as read and questions.
And just remembering too that the report was requested before we decided to actually put the building on the market too, wasn't it? So it's sort of a retrospective thing that we're having to bear. But Paul.
Yeah, so I was a little pleasantly surprised, I suppose, about the liquefaction result there. Given the, as I raised a couple of months ago, about the creek, Brown Creek that runs under there, and you can see it very clearly on the old maps up until around about the 1870s, 1880s, and it just curls right through this very section. So I expect then that this report, they actually looked back into that historically, as well as doing some drill.
They did look at that and they did touch on some of that in the report. However, I'm not a structural engineer, so I cannot provide further details on that.
Yes, so it's pleasantly surprising, but I did expect it was going to be just a big wedge of mud underneath it. So that much is good, but which is good news for the next owner, which won't be us.
I was interested to see the levels of shaking that we're talking about here, which is probably slightly played down to what we will experience should the Alpine fault go by several 100,000 times.
The other point I'd make
Well, just on the seismic one, I'm going to say it's good for us because we own the building and we have this report to say that it's good. So that's a good thing.
It is for sale.
I was going
to say good.
No, it's good. We've got this report that can go with the sale.
Concludes that it's good.
Well, having a good report is that's what I'm saying.
Well, we've got a report that's helpful, yes.
Insofar as there's such a thing as a good forecast for spring rain.
Because through your worship, I was going to draw attention to 3.3, which is on the page number it is. that the proposed concept strengthening design is more than what was identified from the Simcoe report previously. And as such, the cost for the strengthening could increase, which was before your time, but which was raised at the time in previous administration was insisting that the Simcoe report was kosher and was the because the Simcoe report was in response to the concerns that we raised about the WSP report, or what was raised in the WSP report, which gave us 27% maximum size rating. Simcoe came along and bumped that up to 67%, well above the disparity was glaring. And so this is saying that in actual fact that it was right to question. So because I was deprived over the criticism of that report, that's
in past times.
History.
Just in response to that, we did do more intrusive investigations. It wasn't done by either WSP or Simcoe at the time. When we did the intrusive investigations at this building, we did the same at Bucky White Diner building, so they probably did a more thorough investigation and also had the geotech reports available at the time of writing it.
Which is good, because that's what should have happened at the time, and we may not have been in this position. Someone didn't want to hear it.
Nope. And we can't turn back the clock, so we've got to make the most of where we're at now and make sure we make the right steps going forward. Anything further for Jan, please?
Put it on the market.
So can I have a move and second to please and resolve that the report and appendices be received? Councillor Abson, Councillor Collette, all in favour?
Aye.
Thank you very much, Jan, that's great. Excellent. Brilliant. Right, moving on, we now have West Coast Wilderness Trail Ridge.
Just a pause for a minute. Technical specialist.
Do you want us to jump to the next agenda item then?
Yes, please.
All right, Jan, don't go away. All right, so while Earl sorts out his technical problems, we'll go on to the next agenda item, which is and the reason I'm going to keep moving forward is that I've got a meeting at Friends Joseph at 6 o'clock, Joint River Committee that Scott and Brian have to be at as well. So we do need to keep things moving along. So I will move on to the Hokitika Central Business District Christmas lights. Jan, welcome back to the table. Earl's going to come in the door now and say he's ready. No, he's not. Right, all yours. Thanks, Jan.
Thank you. So I'll take it forward as read. Start with, in the previous council meeting in July, we came with a report to council to request funding for Christmas lights and a new installation method to put that Christmas lights up. The recommendation was made to go back to Destination Hokitika and the wider community to see if they would fundraise for the Christmas lights. We did go to them, we've had a few meetings with them, and they have come back saying yes, they would like to raise funds and buy the Christmas lights. However, they were not comfortable that they'd be able to raise enough funding to put the new system to install the lights in. Also, it is council that's going to have a saving by installing it at a cheaper, a less expensive way with a new system that we plan to install. So they came back requesting council to pay for the new system, which would be in the region of, I think it's $12,500, $14,500. It will reduce the maintenance of putting up and taking down the lights from around $8,000 a year to about $3,000 a year. So in the first year, if we do proceed with this, in the first year we'll spend the $14,500 plus $3,000 for installation, then going forward only $3,000 instead of $8,000. So after the first 2 years, we would have paid off the new system from the saving that we would have made.
Thanks, Jan. That's great. So everybody's read the report? everybody understands what these frames are about. And it's all about efficiency. If we're going to progress with something, it's about having an efficient system where we also manage the products so that they actually get cared for and last longer. And it's wonderful too that we've got so many members of the community that want to support this and drive it. So the weight on the council was not there. We had a really good constructive meeting with a lot of them, and I think we'll probably see some more come on board. Yeah, they want the lights, and this is what they're asking council to work with, and Jan's been looking at this quite intensively and how we can manage it.
I'd like to move option 1.
I'll second third there.
We have a mover, but I'll allow a couple of questions and we'll revert back to Councillor Burden if that's all right.
Option 1, option 2. Is option 2, I may go missed it in the report. It says to support frames at 4 crossings. But option 1 was at 4 crossings also. There, like option 2, that just half as many.
Yeah, so option 2 was to just do half of them. If there wasn't enough
So
money
only
to
get
do
2.
all 4 crossings, then we could just potentially do 2 crossings.
2 crossings.
Or,
Saying that would make up the money that we'd spent on the savings that we'd make in future years, but hadn't we already withdrawn that money?
and we still have money in the budget to put up, to install and take down the lights. We've taken out money to buy new lights.
So that's actually the original budget that is still in there, Jane. Yeah, it was replacement of new that we said we wouldn't support.
Just credit to Destination Architect for coming on board.
Yep.
That is sparing the ratepayers. But I mean, it's a good solution that they've come up with, I'm sure. Given the criticism of Grinch style Christmas, I think it's.
Hang on, you with the Grinchlings?
Well, so I think it's a good solution. It shares the cost, and a bit of Christmas cheer is doesn't hurt.
No.
Not going to break the bank, and so yeah, good. Just
And also, yeah, clarifying that the Hokitika Community Trust is also part of that. And there's other interests as well that are coming forward too. So it's important we recognise those that are sitting at the table, and we recognise we also come to the table. But yes, you're quite right. Do you want to revert back to your?
Yeah, my motion is
Councillor, moved by Councillor Burden, seconded by Councillor Manera. All in favour?
Aye.
Sorry, Ashley?
That was an aye.
An aye, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, you got that pen? 5 against?
Jane?
Yeah, I think I'm against.
So you're a yes? Against. Against. 1, 2, 3. It's carried by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry. Do you want your votes recorded against? Actually, I must look on it to actually record the vote.
So my duty.
Sound reasonable. So with that, move and a second to resolve that the report be received, the council purchased 4 new engineered support frames at the cost of $14,528 for the Christmas lights supplied by the community and install and remove them for the festive period. Thank you very much, Yana. Thank you to the movie seconder and those that have that carried. We can look forward to a bit of delight come Christmas time, and I'm sure the community will be very pleased to see that happening. Thanks, Jan, very much for that, and for the work on those frames too. The look on Earl's face is not favourable. How are we sitting? Do you want us to move on to the warrants?
That's my fault. Sorry, through the chair. I told Di that it was the wrong person online, and the Zoom has voted his support person off, and now it's going to back.
So this is the engineer?
Yes.
Right. Okay, all right. So we'll
This is
move
a past
back onto the Wilderness Trail Towage Bridge report from Earl. And he did have one of the engineers from the report on standby, so we'll work with what we can. Okay, thanks, Earl. Earl, that report has been read.
Yes. I've invited Ben Batty from WSP. He is the bridge asset manager, and he's here for technical support for questions. If anyone else got questions, of a technical nature, he'll be able to answer. If he can't hear you, something that's fallen away, then I'll pass it on.
Questions, please. How's it going?
Through the chair, I'm just struggling with the business case for a solution for closing the thing. I know we get economic value statements through the Trail Trust, but it doesn't break it down to the nuts and bolts as to the direct return, the average rate payer, and how much they're going to fund. I don't mind the concept of a nice solution of a swing bridge going through the middle, but it's a matter of where that money is going to come from. I think 1.2 million for the council doesn't fit the core services kind of scenario.
No, and I hear what you're saying there. Just on that, I am doing
So
everything
I'm yet to be
I can to
convinced.
find.
I like the idea, but incrementally, what is the economic damage by not having that bridge? I think the trail partners will be able to manage and thrive just as well without that final connection. I think the benefit to Ross is small. I know I hear, and I would love to have the bridge built, but I think 1.2 million for us to fund.
Is the bridge too far?
Well, I think with that, I think it would be advantageous for councillors to go to Ross and talk to the community members. And then you'll get a fairly good idea on the impact on them and what they see as being a loss. It is a decision that you're making that will affect their lives and their community. So it is what I would call a very significant decision that you're making on the impact on that community. It's not just about the cycle businesses.
What would be the rate of impact?
Well, I'm doing everything I can to find funding that does not impact the ratepayers. And I've also got Develop West Coast working not on their funding, but external funding options for
I
it.
think it still needs a business case. I think the emotions are high on it, and I get that, and I'd love to have the bridge built. But if you go for external funding, you still need a business case.
Well,
It also needs to be presented and saying, this is the value of someone funding X amount contribution to this project.
And the entire 130k project was externally funded in the first place, and it's proven in the long run to be something of a headache and quite an agenda item. So you might find some white knight from MB or anywhere else that may come in and kick the touch now, and 5 or 10 years time we may very well be having the exact same world conversation about another piece of the trail or.
I think that the path should be that we should develop a business case to present for external funding, rather than make a decision on what the solution might be now, without any funding solution in place.
Well, this is also something that Earl's should be looking at too, is that this is why it's come here, is that, you know, the direction where we go to from here, as far as spending time, looking at getting things put together for pricing and,
Through the chair, the reason I didn't put a recommendation in is because any of these recommendations are, apart from possibly closing them, are going to cost council money. We have got some carryover budget set aside for this. We have got some long-term budget set aside 2 to 3 years out for any works down there, but I need to feel the appetite in the room and through the council and the community as to what needs to happen.
So the idea of the swing bridge slung through the middle of the existing bridge is daft, in my view. But it's like, if the bridge is so unsafe as it is, then why would you put a new structure within it? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Through the chair. I've had discussions with 2 contractors who actually do that type of work, and yes, the trellis work 90% of it would have to be removed because the stabilisers to stop it swinging at that length in the wind need to go through and they need to go out. So they can't go through and out through the trellis simply because the trellis falls over and takes it out. So that structure underneath can remain because that'll just fall away. So the other point I'd make is that a picture tells 1,000 words, of course, and those photographs of the state of the British are very telling. It should be published, the whole page of them should be published in The Guardian, and all the naysayers then might have a different opinion. The bridge is buggered. It was the weak link from the start of the Wilderness Trail when it was built. It was patched up with a new deck on it, but it clearly wasn't going to last. Questions risen from it for me is what's happened. This is another Ross swimming pool structure, another Hotel Gorge, and here we are with another one on the bridge. And what's happened to the asset management plans that we've asked for around this table over the past 4 years, and we're assured that they were in hand. If we had an asset management plan, we would have known and it wouldn't be belting us around the head that the bridge is about to collapse and it's so dangerous it has to be closed immediately. We would have known in advance that the bridge has now got 5 years, 4 years, 6 months, whatever, but we weren't given that. Instead we were told as a result of that subsequent report from WSP, which I could see that it needed to be closed immediately. Not that I see anything in that WSP report to say that, apart from the recommendation at the end. But as I say, the photographs speak for themselves on the state of the current structure. And I just think I'm tending to lean with Councillor Collette. All of those options are expensive. Rerouting, creating another bridge of any kind are ultimately going to fall back on the ratepayers. Given that Ross have already committed to funding the rebuild of the Ross swimming pool structure, then this on top of it and the targeted rate isn't a great option. It's a real shame for the town, and but it has to be taken in the context of it's a district. This is a district-wide asset.
And a district-wide cost as well.
Correct.
There's 280 residents in Ross. If they would all bear $1 million cost, that'd be $5,500 per person in the township, and I don't think they would be forming a queue for that money, quite frankly.
It's not quite how it works, but Scott, to Jane.
I was just going to pick up on the West Coast management plan.
Yeah.
Because this is, I am aware, and we discussed this at the Walking and Cycling Committee, that this is something that has been on our horizon, has been something that Earl had raised. The key issue that you've got with this, if I am being very blunt, is Council agreed in 2010 to take on board a railway bridge which had been shut for 30 years and hadn't actually been maintained in the interim period. That inevitably, at some stage, was going to cost a huge amount of money to repair. And the key issues that you've got with that bridge are around structural integrity. So you can go along and you can do minor maintenance to a bridge of that type, but it will not address the fundamental issues of dealing with the structural components. And it's hit end of life status, and I think, as you said, Paul, the photographs speak for themselves. So this is not something that was unforeseen. I think the key issue has always been the sheer volume of money that would have been required to keep that bridge going was far in excess of what council would have had to do it. Sorry, I'm being really direct.
No, and also how we got into the situation and whether the demise of this bridge was long signal or abrupt is actually redundant. We've got a liability sitting there now and a lack of appetite of will of anyone to actually put money on the table.
Can I just come back on, sorry, just very quickly, because it is something that we've taken a heck of a lot of flack for.
Unjustifiably so.
And I can say, you know, the mayor has been really on the sharp end of this in terms of fielding a lot of conversations. People think that coming along and saying, I've got a gift for you, is helpful. And actually, some of these things that people think are assets, they're not the liabilities. And people just going, oh yeah, we'll take that, don't worry about it, it'll last 10 years now, I'm retired by the time it becomes a problem, is not an issue. You know, it's something that we've got to think about, and the decisions that we make about this table now are going to impact on what happens over the next 20 years, not the next 3. Sorry.
No, hang on. I'll revert back to, I think, Jane, you had your hand up earlier, and I'll get back to everybody.
Never look a gift horse in the mouth, eh? There's 2 other bridges on that part of the cycleway, there's 10 other bridges, but there's 2 that are particularly liable, so I'd like a wee bit of information on that, and potential likely costs.
The Goward and the Rocky Creek bridges, and they're very similar to what we undertook up at the Community Waterways, and they're probably going to cost, you know, if you steel brace and replace them, around about $150,000 each.
So I think that needs to be part of this conversation as well.
They're not due, nothing's due there, we can do, you know, that's 2 to 3 years out.
It's really good to know that, we still need to take it into account.
The day of judgment is coming.
Yeah. There's a comment about public consultation might be required depending on our decision. Can you elaborate on that?
The West Coast Waters Trail is classified as a strategic asset, so it might be required.
If we
maybe we could assist.
Through the chair, it would definitely have to be consulted, but it could be through the.
If we decided to fund it, or if we decided to
either way, really.
Either way.
Oh, it can be. You can do something temporarily because it's level of service. Sorry, I'm going to get told on. Just be told off once. It's to do with level of service as far as the act is concerned. So you can do something on a temporary basis. So we could close it now, we could an LTP next year, so we don't need to consult in between, but it would have to go in the long-term plan. Either way, we would have to put it through that plan.
Thank you. And at the moment, there's 1.3 million in the Wilderness Trail for capital expenditure. Is that correct? And the long-term fee?
There's some carryover that was brought forward from 23-24, which is in that carryover report there. That was to carry on doing engineering investigations, start moving forward into reconstruction and that. And then there's a budget set aside in year 26-27 that would have to be brought back in order to have that funding. So.
And was that specifically for this bridge?
Yes.
It was.
And then there was the budget that was cut for next year.
Thank you.
Councillor Beck.
Through your worship, just a technical query in terms of these being assets, are they depreciated? And if so, it's probably not relevant, but is there any reserves relating to them?
There's very little reserves with the cycle trail because most of it is just land. I think we fund 13% of the cost of the cycle trail, so very little reserve is there.
Through the chair as a gift.
Yeah.
Appreciate nothing.
It was end of life when we got it.
Yes, the report certainly supports that comment. Councillor Littleton, you hang up too.
Yeah, just have you got the engineer online?
Yes, can you hear Ian?
I can only hear a little bit, so if
That's right.
you could repeat the question, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, okay. So in terms of your inspection, how long ago would you say that it was unsafe?
Little bit hard to tell. Sorry, the question I heard was how long ago would it have been unsafe. I mean, the visual inspection we've carried out was fairly rigorous, and we identified numerous elements that were well below thresholds that we would have expected could be safe. Further investigation would have been required to sort of further scope out what work had been done, but I think we've given that the advice to council approximately a year ago when we were engaged.
And that's correct. And then I deployed Isaac / the Downs to undertake more physical investigation of the bridge itself and pass those results on to WSP, and they compared those with what was known versus what is new, and that's when the last report came through. So it's a serious health and safety issue.
So in the last statement, you're saying that the council should consider closing the structure. You know, when you say consider, what do you mean by that?
So what do we mean consider? I mean, it is ultimately a council's decision as to whether the asset order remain open or not. But I guess
What am I asking?
are you in that respect is highlighted areas where urgent works should be undertaken. So I guess the decision in that respect is carry out works or look at closing the structure.
What I'm asking, are you recommending that council close it?
Currently, yes, it does. We don't have
Thank you.
confidence that it can continue to operate safely.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to catch up on all the hands that were raised. If I
No, Jane's question answered my question that I had.
Paul, and then we'll start having some direction.
Devil's advocate. Would it be possible to, given that the bridge it's been 40 years since the trains were going across that bridge, and the deterioration since then is evident. But would it be possible to put a restriction on there, a weight restriction, insofar as having one at a time going across? Given there are only people on bikes. Did you hear that question again? No, that's right. Councillors has asked, is it possible to put a weight restriction on it and have one person at a time going through it?
Well, so these structures, the structure historically was a rail structure, so it had a heap of reserve capacity when it was first built and when it would have been in its original condition, and would have a lot of capacity to tolerate significant deterioration. As it's now not carrying rail loads, its predominant load case is actually its own self-weight. So, in comparison to that, pedestrian and cyclist loading is pretty insignificant. So we're more worried about whether it can continue to sustain its own self-weight, and I guess whether or not it is able to, ultimately fails is probably immaterial of whether it's being trafficked by somebody. So we can't really say with any confidence that it won't fall over of its own volition tomorrow without anybody on it. Now I guess that's where the concern lays. So I wouldn't recommend putting on a one person per time at a time restriction at this stage.
Because ultimately you're saying that the demise of the bridge has nothing to do with people being on it, it's actually going to just cave in on its own because the support structures underneath will give away.
It's primarily the trust itself that's a concern. The support structure, while has a lot of timber and would have a considerable amount of resilience, we haven't done or been engaged to carry out destructive or invasive inspection of below bed piles, but again we would expect that it would have considerable ability to tolerate deterioration. So it's more from what we've been able to observe, the truss itself that's the concern.
Is it the top part?
Yeah.
Why not just take them off?
It's like Meccano. Yeah. It's all self-supports itself. You take one off and it
Just repeat what you said about the piles.
So what I said was there is a considerable amount of timber in those piles. They will have again been built up for rail loads, and while there's deterioration in the timber elements of the truss itself, it's in an open area. We've identified areas of decay, but it's well ventilated. The main concern that we've been able to observe has been the steelwork. Given it's coastal, it has considerable section loss. So it's the steel hangers and plate elements that are supporting tension there. So the support structure, again, being comprised of mainly timber elements, is mostly exposed to decay and abrasion effectively. So that's not something we've been able to validate so far, but again, it is likely that there is more reserve capacity in the piles, and they would be able to redistribute between themselves. So I think there is less concern about the substructure than there is the superstructure of the truss itself.
And, yeah, and in saying that, we've only, even with the additional invasive inspections that we've done, we've only still looked at about 35% of that bridge. So we're gauging it off what we know of 35%. Once you start digging in that hole.
Councillor Phelps.
Some of this stuff's actually relatively simple. I mean, anyone can build a bridge that doesn't fall down. That's a relatively simple thing to do if you get the right engineers and workers. Any government can harvest resources through rates or taxes to pay for an engineer to do so. The question we've got to consider is whether there's a good financial argument for doing that or whether there's a good moral argument for doing that. And so far I'm yet to hear either.
That's great.
Through the chair, is there any more technical questions? No. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time, councillors.
Councillor Green.
So I'd like to move a modified option 1 that we agree on a permanent closure of the Totara Bridge, but that we develop a business case and investigate external funding options for a replacement. So we don't just kick it completely out of touch, but we could do the right thing. I mean, the bridge was great when it was given to us for free, but we always knew it was going to come to an end, and when it came to an end, that's it. But we can't afford to replace it as a council cost. But I think option 1, modify, to leave the option open to see if we can seek an external funding source. Should be.
Steve, with that motion you're discussing, do you foresee the closing at Pyrie Road or closing at the northern end of the Totara Bridge?
What's that?
Who are you asking?
Steve's talking about a modified option 1 as an option. That option has mentioned closing at Pyrie Road at Ruatap, not at the northern end of the bridge. I was just wondering his view on that, as for me that seems an issue.
As James raised, there's 2 bridges along that section trail which aren't, which are in poor state, but they're still usable. So I guess we could just close the bridge at the bridge itself, but I don't know what usefulness that will provide, because it's not a particularly nice user experience riding to the bridge and then turn around and come back. There's no destination, there's no ice cream shop.
It's actually the least traffic part of the cycle trail as well, from the treetop all the way through the Ross.
Through the chair, there's potentially a business opportunity for someone to do something to get across that river. One thing that does concern me is we can't advise people to go across that river because it goes up and down reasonably fast enough.
Yeah.
On a good day, you can walk across it.
Yes.
Whilst I get Steve's comments around it not being a great user experience compared to other parts, and Patrick's comment around it being a low use part of the trail, I think it's not right for us to close it at Pyrie Road, and if we are closing it on the bridge because the bridge is unsafe, then it needs to be the northern end of the bridge. So people who choose to, and some will and some won't, still have the ability to use that section of trail to go up and down there.
It would seem wasteful to shut an otherwise perfectly functional part of the trail just because the bridge.
Exactly what I'm saying, if you can hear that.
Yeah, no, definitely, both literally and in that.
I think it's a small technical thing, but I'd be happy to support it being closed at the bridge and not on the road.
Well, just on that, I had an email from somebody who is coming down next month, a group of 8 of them from the North Island to do the cycle trail. They found the bridge is closed. If they'd known about the bridge being, if they knew we were going to shut the bridge, they wouldn't have come here, they'd have gone somewhere else. That was point 1. And point two, they sort of said, well, council really was shutting the bridge, should be putting a shuttle bus on to pick people up so they can ride down to the bridge, come back out, we can pick them up.
I saw you.
At the corner out there where you are, Jane, and then take them down to Ross for their accommodation. I mean, you know, it's like.
Why don't we buy them an aeroplane for this?
I know. Well, I'll sit there when they ring me to say, come pick me up, and say, well, I'm in a meeting, I'll be 3 hours, just wait. You know, this is the level of what's going on. It's mind blowing.
I'm sorry, 95% of the people who use that trail are not from there. We do not owe the nation of New Zealand a cycle trail.
No, exactly. I know, but that's the level of expectation that's coming through, which I'm just bewildered by. The other thing I have been asked by several people involved with the cycle trail is to override the decision of council and take the risk and the culpability on my own shoulders as far as if something goes wrong and somebody dies, that I wear the risk. Well, no, I'm not prepared to do that. I'm not prepared to put council at risk for it either. But this is the level of the sentiment that's there. There's a lot of anger, there's a lot of anguish, there's a lot of hurt. We have got a report that says the bridge was pretty buggered when it was gifted to us by New Zealand Rail, and at that point it had very, very little done to it for the time that it was in ownership of New Zealand Rail. And the timber that was put on top of it was only there so that the cyclists and walkers could get across the bridge, because before that they would have fallen through the gaps. So it's had nothing done from basically the day it was built that you could say was of significance. So
It's very good.
it is, and the photos support that, but it's where we're at now and what we do for managing this. Stephen,
Worship, just in terms of if we close the bridge but we still own it, what's our responsibilities, liabilities in case it starts to fall into the river? Do we need to allow for dismantling the thing?
Through the, I did suss that out. I had to talk to the regional council and said, this falls into the river. We've got a consenting problem and we've got an issue. According to what I found out, we don't. I think it becomes an issue if it's a marine asset that's interfering with boat passage or something like that, and you have very little boats down here. Staying here or
just like that.
Whether it would actually pay for itself, a council operation to do it and dismantle it and sell it off would be.
Consider it for demolition, wouldn't
it? Quite potentially.
In terms of, in the meantime, what's the cost of sort of practicable measures in terms of preventing its use? I mean, if people are stupid enough to clamber over it and do other things and hurt themselves, at what?
On the day we closed it, I had a plan that we were going to rip up some of the deck.
Right.
And remove it so no one would go across. And then I thought, there's even passion and issues going on that people won't get on it in the dark and actually fall through the bridge and go into the river. So the bridge was blocked in the middle, was blocked everything. Apart from removing all the deck and making it quite obvious, but that's quite an expense in itself, but it can happen.
If you want to start in the middle and work your way out.
What did you want to?
All I was going to add, just in terms of the discussion about what happens with those types of bridge when they fail, is they don't give me a warning, they just go. And certainly when we were talking to the WSP, Bill and I, they were talking about a similar bridge in another part of New Zealand, where the community had decided that they wanted to keep. There was a particular issue with one of the spans, and the community wanted to raise money to maintain it and keep it going, and while they were raising the money, the other bit fell down. So, you know, you've got to be really careful with these types of structures, because you think they're all right, and suddenly they're not.
I'd like to see us investigate the other options there, like there are some options that have been about for the 1.2 million. I think I would say Steve O'Flynn.
I don't have a problem with that. It's the business case and the funding. I still think the bridge needs to be closed, and then we should look at it.
Yeah. So with that, then do we add into as point 3, cycle trail remain closed, not be closed, at the northern end of the Totara Bridge, and see if an external funding source can be found to explore alternative options for the bridge or alternate routes for the cycle trail. Is that sufficient wording to cover the direction of
So just
council.
one final question from
Yes.
You met with Matt Ducey
Yes.
weeks ago. Was he brimming with enthusiasm for funding it? or
He was very concerned he was going back to Wellington.
Okay.
So it is an avenue that I've been perceiving because there are a couple of things that are discretionary funds,
Yeah.
which can be tapped into and so, but that's not talking about rebuilding that bridge.
I know, I'm just.
It's more along the lines of the bridge in the end.
Because I mean, obviously everyone's belt is tightening, etc., and I'm sure we're not the only cycle trail around the country that's probably knocking on his door and that sort of stuff, so.
Well, the big thing we've taken to the minister is, for all the regions with cycle trails, is the fact that the current model is unsustainable. The deal was that it wouldn't cost the ratepayers or councils money, which it does. So, you know, the concept might have been fine, but the costs don't match what the original scope was. So, we were told we couldn't toll them at all. That is now being considered by way of a donation, but a donation's not strong enough because you'll only get a small percentage of those that will be willing to do it. So Minister Ducey did say that they were looking at that because it's a problem that's right around the country with cycle trails. All the councils are pushing back on this for the same reason. So just to keep things moving along, is everybody happy with that point 3?
What was point 3, sorry?
The West Coast Wilderness Cycle Trail remain closed at the northern end of the Totara Bridge and see if an external funding source can be found to explore alternative options for the bridge or alternate routes for the cycle trail. I think we need to have closed at both ends of the Totara Bridge because it's not just the northern end, or north and southern end. Northern and southern end.
So this is a modification of option 1, is it?
So this is, we also got point 1 was that we receive council to assess the options included in this report and provide direction for council staff to proceed. That would be option 3 as to the direction given by council, which is trying to merge what everybody has said for comments on the direction.
Did you want a business case? Did you want someone to do a business case? That has to be included.
See if an external funding source can be found to explore alternative options. Do we look at that before we proceed with the business case? Which way would you like to do it? How do you want that added into the wording?
Surely a business case is needed to secure an external funding source.
Yeah, I think a business case is required. There's no point looking for alternatives.
You've got to have a design before you have a business.
Well, we've got alternatives of what's come forward.
Yeah, we have got viable alternatives, but the business case also involves the rest of that trail with the upcoming works, whether it's viable to, you know, later on it's only going to be back here, but it's small amount, but we're going to be back here.
So maybe that's what we should have in the business case, so we've got a better picture, a total picture of it. Is that what you?
So if someone listening can correct me, from what I understand reading this, the cheapest alternative, quote unquote, is still over $1 million, isn't it?
Yes,
that is correct. The business case, who's going to pay for that?
Well, this is the point, because there is a cost to be incurred with that, which will fall back onto us, but we don't know what that looks like for cost.
So I can just see that going out to consultants.
Yes.
And then there's another big one.
What is the best way to manage a business case?
Well, we need to look at whether we've got the resources in-house to do that, and if not, come back and let you know.
Yeah, but it's going to cost a lot of money to do a business case.
Through the chair, there's also the opportunity to use Jackie Goody.
I was just going to say
that. Yeah.
And so might Joe, as well from DW. There are resources out there that we
Well,
could tap
maybe we
into.
shouldn't stipulate a business case, but just make it broad around that we should seek sources of external funding, and by nature of that, they would require a business case anyway, potentially.
The there's no expense of a ratepayer.
We know what the rough cost of the alternatives are, and we know that we don't want to pay for it. So all we need to know is if there's a white note out there, which there probably isn't, but that's the only assumption we can operate on. If we want to actually
But it's not only that, I mean, it's the having the skills to do it. You know, well, I mean, say, we may not have the skills to do the business case, but there might be, like, the Department of Conservation, who have the skills, who are also a partner with the council in terms of the cycle trail. So that's just another source as well.
I mean, a business case sort of creates an assumption that there even is a business case for it. I think a funding request is probably a more accurate name for what it is. I mean, it's a document that you're writing to try and procure money off someone that otherwise wouldn't be interested to give it to you. So,
So it pauses in hibernation.
Well, we need to word it in such a way that the implication is there's no automatic cost to council. So the business case opens the door right open, and we don't.
Right, and we just need to make sure we define what we say very clearly. Scott.
All I was going to say
Complete the
is
word on
I
it.
fully accept the sentiment about not spending money prolifically on trying to find a position. I think it can be a bit restrictive if you say don't spend any money at all whatsoever because it gives you no flexibility. So could I suggest that we use the phrase minimal rather than no?
Touch bridge and investigate.
But you don't see it. You're clear on the sentiment though.
Oh, yeah.
It won't be, oh, Tonkin and Taylor can write that.
No. Okay, so we're taking out investigating external funding source and putting in seek business case involvement, I don't know, with external parties, meaning Jackie, Joe, in the creation of a business case.
Well, develop a minimal business case for the purpose of seeking external funding.
And investigate.
Through the chair, what would you want us, what knowledge would we gain from the business case? I'm curious as to what it would actually tell us.
It's not really told us.
Through the chair, Andy is our trail management partner, so they may be able to assist us with that as well.
Creating a business case with minimal cost.
It's to have a higher certainty that we might be successful getting external funding if we actually do it. We're just going to say, can we have some money? It's just not going to happen. But if we present a coherent and sound business proposition, they would say, actually, this makes sense. We need to support this project and let's take this further.
I'm amazed that the only people who want to spend money on this are people who are spending other people's money. I find that quite fascinating.
Noting also that the modus operandi of this government is co-funding everything.
Yep. Right, so if we can tie this down,
They can say, oh, here's the.
Here's 500,000, where's your 500,000?
Right, so if we can just get back to actually creating the right wording here. So creating a business case with no cost to the ratepayers. Minimal cost to the ratepayers. Negligible.
I think the problem is if you say no cost, it just stops you completely. If somebody comes along and goes, oh, I can help you with that, will you meet me expenses? And you go, well, no, I can't. That's the concern I've got. I absolutely totally understand the sentiment around the table, which is this is not a licensed industry consultant. I get that entirely. But I just think if you go no cost, it just hamstrings your ability to do it.
I think we need to have a very hard conversation over whether the ratepayers should be paying for the cycle trail at all, quite frankly.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, well, it's not what we're talking about right now, but I know what you're saying there. Well,
we're talking about it in increments
yes,
right
but
now.
we're not going to diverse into that conversation now.
Because we've discussed before, and always come out that we will continue.
Yes. So if you want that, right, if we can just, because time's getting by now, if we can just keep back to the conversation. So, councillors assess the options, including this report, and provide a direction for council staff to proceed. Now that direction is going to be creating a business case with minimal cost to the ratepayer.
We could have put a number on that rather than just say.
We can do if you want that. The West Coast Wilderness Cycle Trail remains closed at the northern and southern ends of the Tokra Bridge. A business case is created with minimal cost to the ratepayer, and external funding sources are explored for alternative options for the Tokra Bridge or alternate routes for the cycle trail. It's a bit of a jumbo, but it's the gist of what's been said here. You happy with that?
Yeah, I think that's the best best compromise.
I mean, the thing is too, is that
I mean, there is another piece of work that's still got to be sorted that Bill and I have talked about. We did agree to do a review of the management, marketing and maintenance of the whole trail. So this could be a bigger piece of work to see if it's actually needed, what our involvement in cycle trail is in the future.
And it's probably a full review, because even when the Cycle Trail Trust and everything was established, it was back at the start of the whole entity, whereas we're so many years into it now, it's probably time to actually have that full review across the whole case, because it needs to be brought up to the here and now.
So we need to do something about this, correct?
Yes, we do.
So
Right. So
we need to close it, but we need to look at how we could. Everything's fine. I'm happy to.
all right. So can I have a mover and a seconder, please, resolve that the report be received, that councillors assess it, well, councillors have assessed the options, we'll, yep, take that one out. The West Coast Wilderness Cycle Trail remain closed at the northern and southern ends of the Totara Bridge. A business case is to be created with minimal cost to the ratepayer, with investigating external funding sources to, and investigate, no, hang on, sorry, it's not quite actually crystal clear, is it? West Coast Wilderness Cycle Trail remain closed at the northern and southern ends of the Totara Bridge. Create a business case with minimal cost to the ratepayer and investigate if an external funding source can be found to explore alternative options for the Totara Bridge or alternate routes for the cycle trail. Happy with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Second that, move for Councillor Glenn, second for Councillor. Thank you. Councillor Davidson, sorry, I should have just read. Thank you. All in favour? Aye. Councillor Fox, do you want your vote recorded against? Right, carried. Thank you.
What time frame would people like that to happen? What time frame?
Right.
What's realistic?
Yes.
Ash? You got a comment, Ash?
I was being facetious and said yesterday, sorry.
Oh, okay. It's all right. We're all being facetious now. As soon as possible. We need a direction for the Hills people as well. All right, thank you for that. Look, we're not able to sit for, not supposed to sit for more than 2 hours continuously without a break, but we have still got business to get through and we need to have this meeting finished by 4 o'clock. So if everybody's happy to carry on.
Can we make a cup of tea and bring it back?
It's cheese Thompson.
Oh, God, is it?
Can we just make a cup of tea and bring it back?
Yes. Yes. So can I have a move and a second, please, that we will, it's going to be on the 2 hours in accordance with Councillor Davidson. Thank you. 25. Are we right to just do it that way, Di? Yep, thank you. Right. So reconvening 325, we'll move straight on to the administrative resolution, the warrant of appointments. As in the report, resolving that council confirms its seal being affixed to the following warrant of appointment amendments, and they're all there in the report with all the names and the various departments that they represent. And there's quite a few of them. So I'll take that as being read and acknowledged, and can I have a mover and seconder, please?
Happy to move that.
Thank you, Councillor Casson. Seconder, please. Councillor Beard, thank you very much. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor. Right, number 10. All right, so can I have a mover and seconder, please, resolve that council move into public excluded section of the meeting at 3:26 p.m. Councillor Boone, thank you very much. Councillor Collette. Right. Do we need to disconnect? Yep.